Without a doubt, there has never been a franchise that has had a bigger impact on my life personally than Pokemon. I was absolutely obsessed with Pokemon from the first moment I played Red and Blue as a kid. I was just completely absorbed into its world and characters. And you know, after all of these years, I still love this franchise, which just kind of shows you how good these games really have been. And not just the mainline entries either. I think that there have been plenty of good spin-offs as well. So today, since it's Pokemon's 25th anniversary, we're going to celebrate by taking a look at the top 15 best Pokemon games, or if I can rephrase this, my 15 personal favorites. I do expect yours to be different, and I want to hear your favorites as well, so make sure to get those in the comments below. Now, because Pokemon goes by generations, I did combine generations together, including remakes. As an example, even though there are some differences for Soul Silver, Crystal, and the original Silver, they will all be one entry. This allows me to cover even more games, but with that said, let's get right into it. And to start this list off, I have Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64. This game blew me away when I was a kid because this was the first time I was able to do Pokemon battles in a 3D environment. For me as a huge Pokemon fan, this was mind-blowing at the time. Now, it wasn't as in-depth as the mainline series, but it was still cool as a kid, seeing them in 3D with different animations and all that stuff, and there was also plenty of mini-games to keep you preoccupied. Usually in Pokemon games, there's that relationship of Pokemon with trainers and different humans, but the Mystery Dungeon series is a bit different in the aspect that you yourself have turned into a Pokemon after taking a brief personality test. You then get a partner and form a bond as you try to explore different dungeons to save and recruit other Pokemon. More or less, this is a Pokemon dungeon crawler with a charming world. The combat itself is turn-based and you fight on an invisible grid within a dungeon. It actually has a pretty good combat system and an overall enjoyable story. Now, the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series has several entries, so it's hard to pick the absolute best here, but if you're just now starting out, then the remake Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX for the Switch would be a great starting point. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness and Colosseum was another ambitious release for home consoles. These games basically took what Pokemon Stadium did well and then added a story mode on top of that in complete 3D. These games really have quite the cult following for their take on the Pokemon franchise. It's a real 3D adventure on home consoles, though it's very different than the mainline series. Gale of Darkness in specific had a cool mechanic of shadow Pokemon that you would have to purify. Basically, Team Sapphire was brainwashing Pokemon and closing off their hearts, which would create shadow Pokemon to do all of their nefarious evil deeds. You would then go out and fight Team Sapphire and then steal their Pokemon. Yes, you could steal Pokemon in this game, and I know all of you as a kid tried to do this at least once in the mainline series. They call it snagging in Gale of Darkness, but yeah, you're basically stealing Pokemon. Afterwards, though, you would have to purify these Pokemon. It was different, but also an interesting take on the Pokemon world. Next up, I have Detective Pikachu, which is one of the more interesting entries on this list. A lot of you probably recognize this from the movie, but the game is rather good as well. I mean, yeah, it's a little strange seeing Pikachu talk in a man's voice with its weird-looking animations, but it all comes together in such a charming way. It's definitely different being a point-and-click adventure-style game, but it's something that I think is both unique and enjoyable. I do think this is a spin-off that's definitely worth playing, and if you do have a 3DS, go check it out and see the Pokemon world in a different way other than just battling. To describe this game, it's just simply delightful. Pokken is one of the newest entries in the series, and it's pretty much a combination of Tekken with Pokemon. I never would have thought about this combination myself, but it surprisingly works perfectly. I mean, Pokemon has always at the surface been about battling Pokemon, and here we see a completely different approach than with turn-based battles. This is a legitimate fighting game that has a lot of depth to it. It can be as complex as you want it to be as long as you're willing to dig into the fighting mechanics. As a bonus, it's also pretty cool to see Pokemon battling in this way. I think if anything, Pokken shows exactly how diverse the Pokemon franchise can be, and still at its core, fit and work well as a Pokemon game. Pokemon Let's Go is the most fascinating spinoff here because it shares a lot in common with the mainline series, but is a little more casual than your regular games. It's a combination of the popular mobile Pokemon Go with the mainline series, and a reimagination of the first generation with the original 151 Pokemon. Instead of fighting wild Pokemon, you simply throw Pokeballs similar to how Pokemon Go works. It's a different approach, but it works decently well. Not my favorite addition per se, but there are some other things in Let's Go that I think really is amazing. See, in Let's Go, you can actually ride bigger sized Pokemon, which is pretty awesome, and just the overall art direction in Let's Go is really good. I like the design a lot of both the world and its characters. And for you shiny hunters out there, they made that much easier by allowing you to increase your chances by simply catching the same Pokemon over and over again. This will increase your chances of seeing a shiny, and because you can see a Pokemon in the overworld, it's incredibly exciting seeing a shiny pop up on screen, even if you're not looking for them. It's so difficult to explain why Pokemon Snap is such a great game. I mean, you look at it and you basically just take pictures of Pokemon, but this was such an amazing entry to the Pokemon franchise. It plays like a game on rails, and quite simply, you do just take pictures. But you do unlock a few new items along the way that allows you to interact with the world in different ways. There are plenty of hidden secrets in this game by throwing miniature bomb-like items at Pokemon, which, I mean, that does sound mean, but it's in the game. There's also apples, or you can even use the iconic Pokeflute. As an example, in the first level, if I'm remembering this correctly, the more pictures you take of Lapras, the closer it would get. There was also hidden paths to discover to unlock new levels. I think it was seeing how Pokemon would react in different situations to getting higher ranking photos that made this game so replayable and fun though. Now from this point forward, I will be focusing on the mainline series, and I just want to say that I do like every single one of these games. Just some a little bit more than others, but all of them are amazing in their own right. To start things off though, Pokemon Sword and Shield is probably the most criticized entry in the mainline series, but it's still great in its own right. The thing that really stands out about this game though is the wild area where for the first time, you can see Pokemon pop up in a large environment just kind of walking around. It was crazy for me to see Pokemon like Snorlax just walking around pretty early on in the game. If I was a kid playing this game for the first time, that would have absolutely blown my mind. You can get some seriously powerful Pokemon in Sword and Shield early on too because of this. There's also raid-like battles to catch Pokemon with secret moves and abilities, which makes the competitive scene a little easier to jump into. Pokemon competitively is surprisingly very in-depth and extremely strategical compared to the single-player component, and Sword and Shield makes it much easier than any other entry to jump into. Now with that said, I'm really not a major fan of the Gigantamax mechanic in Sword and Shield. Giant Pokemon just doesn't do much for me personally, and Sword and Shield was also a very weak entry in terms of new Pokemon being added in, and the main villains is comical at best. Next up, I have Sun and Moon, which took the mainline series in a new direction. This is the first mainline Pokemon games to not have gym leaders. The Alolan region is inspired by Hawaii and has a very different culture than other regions. Instead of gym battles, you'll have to complete different trials, including things like battling totem Pokemon, which is much like a boss encounter. This was different, but it worked very well. For those who are looking for something a little different, this is a great addition. They also added things like Z-Crystals for Super-type moves, and my favorite, Alolan-type Pokemon, which acts as a new variant of an already existing Pokemon. This was a brilliant inclusion and completely changes Pokemon for better or worse. It also removed HMs, which was always kind of annoying. You had to have that one Pokemon in past games dedicated to using all of your HM moves to just travel to location to location, and it's finally gone thanks to Sun and Moon. Pokemon Black and White are possibly the most underrated games in this entire franchise. I seriously don't think these games get near as much love as they deserve, especially from a single-player standpoint. I think the first Black and White has one of, if not the very best story in the entire series. The main villain in is absolutely fantastic, and he's probably the most memorable villain outside of maybe Giovanni, which everybody of course knows. Team Plasma as a whole is very different compared to past entries though, as their goal is to free enslaved Pokemon rather than being your typical type villains. Black and White 2 though added something else that I really wish all Pokemon games would include, and that's a difficulty mode. I think by this point, Pokemon has a large fan base of older people playing, and it would be nice to make these games just a little more difficult. A simple option like this goes a long way, and as I said earlier, Pokemon is surprisingly complex and competitive, and it would be cool to have that in single player as well. And shaping off the number 5 spot, I have Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Platinum especially is really good. I actually like the Black and White generation a bit more as a whole, thanks to its overall story and characters, but Platinum is why I have this one ranked just a little bit higher. The distortion world in a classic Pokemon game like this, with its pixelated art, was truly a special experience on the Nintendo DS. Also, being the first entry to get Wi-Fi was an absolute game changer. Up to this point, it was very difficult getting into the multiplayer component of Pokemon, which is very special, and Diamond and Pearl kickstarted that with Wi-Fi. Now, it also had some strong standout Pokemon like Lucario, which to this day is one of my favorite designed Pokemon. Now, I will be very interested in the upcoming remake that releases later this year. I'm definitely excited about that. I lost so many hours to Pokemon X and Y on my 3DS. I was obsessed with this generation there for a while. This was the first step in Pokemon trying to go more in a 3D direction, and I was one of those fans a little concerned when they first announced this move to 3D. I do like the traditional format a lot, but X and Y really sold me on this change, and I think it was done masterfully. It also helped that I liked the Paris-inspired region a lot, and the roller skates instead of just a bicycle was a cool addition in how you move around. Outside of just the region in 3D though, we have to talk about Mega Evolutions, which made already cool Pokemon like Charizard even cooler, and added to their viability on top of that, especially in competitive. Pokemon like Absol, Ampharos, and Mawile, which already had really cool designs, but they weren't really the most complete Pokemon. But suddenly after these Mega Evolutions, they became a lot more useful. Now, I didn't exactly like the Z moves in Sun and Moon, and I really don't like the Gigantamax mechanic in Sword and Shield, but Mega Evolutions, I definitely did like, and I'd be okay if these did return. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z meets Pokemon in the best possible way. And here's the one many of you have probably been waiting for, the series that started it all, Red, Blue, and Yellow. Though I would say the remakes Fire Red and Leaf Green are the overall much better games. These are the most popular entries, with the original selling more than 30 million copies worldwide and started the entire Pokemon phenomenon. These games were basically my childhood, and I'm sure some of this decision is linked to nostalgia, but I think to this day, they're still enjoyable via Fire Red and Leaf Green for the Game Boy Advance. It takes what everybody loved from the originals, and then they made it even better with newer mechanics such as gender, abilities, held items, and so on and so forth. You have all of the original 151 Pokemon that everybody loved so much, and then they added an additional chunk of content with the post-game where you can catch even more Pokemon that was not in the original 151. Now, nostalgia is a strong emotion admittedly, but I also believe Kanto and the Sevi Islands that are in Fire Red makes for a great Pokemon experience that any fan can go back and enjoy to this day. Oh, and by the way, Squirtle Squad all the way. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. What can I say about these games? These ones always really stood out to me, and I've probably beat this game a good 5 or 6 times. Not only do I like the design of the Pokemon in this region, but I think it's the world that really stood out to me in Sapphire and Ruby. Now, there's always some minor differences between each Pokemon game and generations, but with Sapphire and Ruby, the world itself changes. If you play Sapphire, Team Aqua tries to expand the ocean by unleashing Kyogre, so there is a heavy focus on the water in this game, and I always enjoyed seeing the rain flood down on the world of Sapphire. In Ruby though, you awaken Groudon, so rather than having it rain, it would instead have the sun shine brightly. It wasn't just that though, but the cities in this generation was seriously very creative. You had to travel through jungles with tall grass where it pours rain over your head, and then enter a city that was built like a treehouse. Then you would go to the mountains near volcanoes where ash would fall from the sky. Even later in the game, you have this entire city that is literally under the ocean. It's this type of creativity that really stands out to me even today. And as a kid, I also really enjoyed the secret hideouts. There were also 2 different types of bikes that you could get in this game. One where you could do stylish tricks to jump up things like a mountain, or you could cross small gaps with this bike by jumping side to side. Then you had the bike that goes super fast. There was just so much going on in this game that I think stands out to me personally. Oh, and doubles? Yeah, it started here. And at the number 1 spot, I have Pokemon Silver, Gold, and Crystal, or the remade edition Soul Silver and Heart Gold. This generation basically took my love of the blue and red games and then just made me love it even more. It added the best evolutions, Umbreon and Espeon. It added things like a night and day cycle where only certain Pokemon would appear in the day or night. There was the unknown Pokemon at the time that was mysterious, along with one of my favorite legendary Pokemon of all time, Lugia. It even expanded up on the original story. In fact, Silver and Gold was more connected with the previous generation of games than any other generation after, to the point that in the post-game that you could actually go back to the Kanto region after defeating the Elite Four in Johto. When I first saw that as a kid, it blew my mind that I was able to complete another 8 gyms even after completing the main story. It gets even better though because you can find Trainer Red from Blue and Red. This is probably the most memorable battle in any Pokemon game to this day, and for these reasons, Generation 2 gets my vote for the best Pokemon game of all time. Again, this is only my opinion, but there you have it. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, and happy 25th anniversary to one of the best franchises of all time, Pokemon. Make sure to let me know what your favorite Pokemon games are in the comments below as well, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.